Alan Dunbar, welcome to the Preconstruction Podcast.
Thank you very much. Great to be here.
Delighted to have you. For anybody who doesn't know Alan, he's sitting in Seattle, 16 years with Skanska, Senior Vice President and Pre-Construction Lead for the West Coast. Is that right?
Yeah, I have Seattle, Los Angeles, and San Francisco. I also lead our technology and pre-construction group for our Precon group.
Wonderful. Well, we had two of your compadres on, Will Senner and Mr. Stouthammer. So looking forward to get into that in more detail. Before we do that, Alan, from the accent, I think everyone can just about get it. It all started back in Glasgow. What was it like growing up in Glasgow and then obviously going and doing your QS degree?
Glasgow's a beautiful city. I think it's a little bit misunderstood. It always gets a bad rep in comparison to Edinburgh, but I think it's got a little bit more character than Edinburgh. The people are just amazing. They will tell you what's on their mind, and they've just got a wicked sense of humour. So it's a great place to grow up. We actually lived in South Africa for 3 years growing up. My dad was an electrical engineer and got an opportunity to go down there and build the grid down there. So we got an opportunity to see a little bit of the world back in the 70s. Grew up in a little village just outside Glasgow, about 4,000 folks. Everybody knew everybody. And then did a Bachelor of Science in Quantity Surveying at Glasgow Tech. For those who don't know, Quantity Surveying is basically the financial and legal side of the construction industry. So math had always been pretty simple to me. It always came easy to me, and it just seemed probably going to be the right fit for me.
Brilliant. And was the construction aspect obviously maths? You could have went into a number of things with good maths, physics, whatever it may be. What kind of draw you to the construction industry?
Growing up, my dad used to buy flats, or what were known as condos over here, and he would renovate them and rent them out. And I was always getting dragged along to do work, free work for him. And I just get interested in it, and it just seemed to hit the spot. And when I went to college, the year I entered, the economy was just booming. Everybody was coming out, great salaries, great jobs. And when I graduated in '93, it was the bottom of a recession. And I think 4 of us got jobs in coming out of college. So it completely flipped on us. And it was I think my first job with a local construction company was paying me £5,000 a week, a year, sorry. Yeah. $7,500 a year, which was nothing.
That's amazing, isn't it? And was it just a case of, listen, I need to get in here, get some experience, get my feet dirty and find out what this is all about?
Yeah, I was lucky that one of my neighbours was a building surveyor, so basically an architect who does renovation work. And he hooked me up with a construction firm in Glasgow, a guy who had kind of built the company from ground up. And the guy gave me a job all through college, and he gave me a job when I graduated just so I had a job. And what he told me is the only reason he was giving me a job was to go find another job. So it was really good. He believed that you needed 2 mentors in your professional life. You needed someone to teach you the professional side of your profession, and someone else to tell you how to play the game. And he said, I can tell you how to play the game, but you need to go and learn the professional side of it. So it was great advice, and it worked out really well. Yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah, you were lucky. Everyone can, especially beginning, everyone needs that helping hand. And it doesn't have to be a direct mentor that's going to mentor you for 10 or 15 years, but just that subtle bit of advice to go on, whether it be go and get site experience, get into the office. The whole quantity surveying thing, it's kind of a lot of, obviously, my listeners and our listeners in the Preconstruction Podcast are Americans. They've come through a construction management degree, a civil, electrical, mechanical degree. They don't understand that well, not that they don't understand, but they've never had experienced a purely quantity surveying degree. Just give us a quick high-level overview of how different it is to like a construction management degree in the US.
certainly a lot of focus on obviously cost control, how you set up a bill of quantities so that people can price them, because primarily at that time work would get procured through contractors being given a bill of quantities, so a list of all the items in the project and quantities alongside them, and you go through and put rates against each of them, and that would be your offer to the client, and ultimately it would all get remeasured during the project to make sure it was right. So it was a fair process for everybody, and so there was a lot of diligence and teaching on how to prepare these bills of quantities, and a lot of rigor in the process. You'd have construction classes, law classes on contract law, and basic economic classes as well. So a lot more focused on the kind of, as I said, the process, the rigor that goes into setting up a project financially.
Brilliant. Yeah, and it's slightly different. I mean, they obviously touch on the estimating and pre-construction during the construction management degree, but it's, to me, there's not enough focus on it, and hence the reason that there's such a lack of good talent in the US market. I think they've got to change the education system in some way to try and get something more focused towards pre-construction and estimating, because as you and loads of my guests, it is going to be the place where the single most important decisions are made within a project. So I just hope that they address that. So you've qualified, Quantity Surveyor, ready to rock and roll, go and earn some money. You earn $7,500 a year. You kind of spent some time then, obviously South Africa, in the UK. What about 2006? What brings you to the US?
Yeah, I'd had I think my parents always encouraged me to go see the world. They kind of set up, when we went to Africa, that it was okay to go see the world, to leave the extended family. And I'd always seen America as a great, a great place. I'd always seen it on TV, right? It was always looking really great. And there was a bunch of QS firms in the US who advertised for quantity surveyors, and I applied. It was funny, one of my close college buddies actually got offered the job,
right?
And he didn't want to move. He decided he didn't have the borrow to get up and leave.
He got cold feet. He didn't want to leave.
Yeah, he got cold feet.
Yeah.
And so I got offered the job. I could have been in Phoenix, Honolulu, Las Vegas, or Seattle, and I chose Seattle. And I started having cold feet, and my dad said to me, which is probably some of the best advice I've ever received, he said, "Go give it a year, son." He said, go try it. Don't ever look back and say you never tried it. And if it doesn't work out, come on back. Your buddies will still be on the same bar stools. They'll just see you as having had a vacation in the US for a year.
Yeah.
But don't look back in 20 years and say, "I wish I'd tried." And I think sometimes you need a little bit of a helping hand just to push you over the edge.
Yeah.
And that's what I needed at the time. And I look back and say that was brilliant advice.
And he hasn't seen you since? Or you haven't been back, you haven't been back since?
Yeah, I haven't been back for 3 years at the moment. But.
Very good. No, but as a perfect example, it was probably reassurance you need. You probably knew it was the right thing to do, but I mean, what age would you have been back then? You were still a young man.
Yeah, I was 26 when I came over.
Yeah, it's a big move. I mean, you always think of the generations that have gone past, especially Irish, even from the UK. They all went to the East Coast. Like it just seems a little bit of an easier move to New York, Boston, even Chicago's not a million miles away, but Seattle, San Fran, LA, it's the same again, if you know what I mean. Coming 7 hours. So fair play to you for taking that chance.
Yeah, certainly it's further, but also the people are different. I think because you've had so many immigrants on the East Coast, it's the first port of call, and you tend to stay where you land, pretty nearby. then there's the personalities and the characters are an awful lot more similar to the Irish, the Scottish, Italians. So they're an awful lot more direct. And that's one thing you got to learn when you're out when I came to the West Coast is I had to learn to back down a little bit and not be so direct.
Yeah, and it's, I mean, being able to pick that up, it's a skill in itself. I remember we came from, before we got to New York, we came from Perth, Australia, and Perth, Australia is like, it's so secluded. It's like an outback town, where everything's just relaxed, taking it easy, relationships. Let's not get not get tied up in the particulars. But then going from New York, it was like chalk and cheese. And it's different. And is that what drew you to Seattle, other than the other options, Honolulu, or were you given advice on that as well?
I'd seen a TV program about Vancouver, BC, which looked just awesome. And I can't remember, it was a BBC Two program. I can't remember the name of the travel program, but it was all about the city, the music, the lifestyle, and it just attracted me. And Seattle was the closest I could get to it.
Brilliant, great. And now 16, I take it you've been there for 16 years now, you haven't moved?
24 years this year.
Wow.
98 to...
Wow.
Yeah.
So give me an idea. You've obviously a young Scottish guy coming over, the world's your oyster, you're getting in, you get your break at Skanska. Tell me about that kind of evolution of Alan Dunbar, like climbing the ladder quite quickly. What was that like, and how did Skanska facilitate that? How did they allow you to grow so fast and so quickly?
Well, when I first came over, I joined Davis Ryder Hunt for 3 years, and then I was with Davis Langdon for 4 years. And I had a lot of opportunity to work on some great projects. The Seattle Mariners Stadium, Safeco Field, I worked on that for a year or so. Then Amgen bought Immunex. They were building a big campus in Seattle, and I went down and ran the financial side of that project. And Skanska happened to be the contractor on the project, and I got to know the people, and I got to know, I also was doing a bunch of third-party estimating on public projects, and I'd been negotiating numbers with the GCs, including Skanska. So I got to know a bunch of folks at the company, and I really enjoyed the people. And there was a chief estimator there by the name of Kurt Burks, and I always thought I could learn from him. I've always thought it was important when I've had the option that I could control where I wanted to move, to that I wanted to work for people that I can learn from. And I always admired Kurt and thought I could learn from him. So he called me one day, and I was down in Orange County and at the airport, and he said, did I want to come and join them at Skanska? And I was going through my green card process at the time, and I didn't want to put it at risk. So I just told him that I couldn't move at this time. I was interested, but would have to meet. He said, well, just call me when you're ready. So about a year later, I called him, and he's one of these guys who's really hard to get hold of. And I got his voicemail, and I said, hey, Kurt, it's Alan. Just quit my job at Davis Langdon. I've come to join you. I'll be there in 2 weeks. Give me a call, tell me how much you're going to pay me. And that literally was a voicemail I left. And he called me back a couple of hours later and said, cool, we'll see you in a couple of weeks. Don't worry about the money. And I joined Skanska 16 years ago, and I've stayed because of the people.
Brilliant.
People are just awesome.
I love the direct approach. You obviously you didn't mellow out too much.
No, not at all.
Brilliant. But yeah, I get that. I mean, speaking with Steve Stouthammer and Will Senner and everybody that we deal with in the Skanska team, there is a thing that they do hire good people. I know it's an easy cliche to say that we hire good people, but good, smart, tuned in people. I've spoken to a lot in Skanska ahead of any other company, so I can see why you did that. And then obviously you were able to grow. I mean, it's all well and being able to work with smart people. You got to be at that level yourself, and then to be able to grow within that team, there was obviously something special about you. How was that process? Because you did grow fairly quick in the 16 years.
Yeah, so when I joined to work, as I said, I joined to learn Kurt and some of the other folks. And within a year of me joining, Kurt had taken over the West Coast for Skanska. So he started going on the road a lot, and I started taking on more responsibility in the department. And then a year after that, in 2008, he got the national leadership role, which Steve Stouthammer's now in. So he was gone all the time. So I had to learn very fast to step up. And another gentleman by the name of Eric Kemp, him and I were interviewed for the vice president role in 2009, and he got the role. And it was humbling at the time, but probably one of the best things that happened, because I in retrospect, I wasn't ready for the role. And he was coming in from the operation side, and I was with the pre-construction side. So he had a tough first day where he had to, I'd lost and he had won, and he had to win me over the first day. And what he said to me was, I want to build a department that attracts clients to us, both internal and external. I don't want people to be told they have to use our service. I want them to use our service because they believe it adds value and it makes their job easier and better. And I've always thought that was very clever. I've always tried to think about that as, how do I keep making our group better, our service stronger? How do we attract clients to us? And so I worked with Eric for 10 years or so. And him and I often come to the same answer, but we come at it completely different ways. So we had to learn our personalities and how to get to the right answer, or how to communicate together. And we became a pretty good team together. Enjoyed working with each other and challenging each other. And then I think in terms of my own growth, I've always been someone who has been honest with our clients. If they have a project that they can't meet the budget, let's have a conversation about what the options are. But let's not take them down the road of saying that they can afford something they can't, or they're not going to get it in the time period they're looking for. Let's be honest and talk about what we can do and what the issues at hand. And I think that's always held me in good stead. Is I think I have a reputation for just being honest and straightforward. And sometimes you might not like the news, but I care about our projects. I'm going to help you get there.
Yeah. And to getting to where you need to be, you got to be honest and transparent. There's no point in wasting time, and in some cases pre-construction, months and years in pre-construction on something that's not going to ever come to fruition, or not going to be able to build it. And then the relationship between yourself and Eric, you mentioned about pre-construction data within Skanska, and I know Steve and Will mentioned it on their podcast, but it was pretty evident that you were kind of part of the visionary team, or one of the visionaries that decided, right, this is the way we're going to go down, this is the route that we're going to go down. Can you talk about the early days of that? The reason I ask that, there's so many contractors, small, mid, large contractors all over the US now, knowing that pre-construction data is, if they haven't already started it, they know that it's going to be crucial. You guys have got a head start for me on almost everyone. 8 or 9 years ago, you had this idea that pre-construction data was going to be so important. Walk us through that kind of thought and process.
The interesting piece of it is that, we just talked about being honest with clients, and if you need to deliver bad news, deliver bad news. You need to, when you give a client an opinion of cost, it needs to be based on something. It needs to be believed, and to be believable, you need the data to back it up, right? So there's one thing to say, hey, I think this. There's another thing to say, here's 5 similar projects, and here was the outcome of those. You go from having an opinion to being an expert, and when you can get to that point of being an expert, people trust you, right? And you can start moving forward. So we had all these projects that we were doing throughout the country, and we were capturing no data, right? So you're learning new every single time. And we started, more and more clients were saying, well, what does that building cost? So what does that building cost? We never really had a structured system for capturing the data. And we decided as a kind of national group that we needed to have a benchmarking system. And I think the initial concept was we want to know how much something costs. We very quickly came to the realization that you're never going to equalize what something in national costs from something in San Francisco, from something in Chicago. The type of construction, the cost of construction, the way that it's procured, the available labor, union, non-union, etc. You can never equalize it. And we came to an approach very early on that we're going to capture data. We weren't necessarily going to capture costs. So we're going to capture, for instance, if we're talking about the K-12 schools, we're going to capture the relationship between number of classrooms and number of restaurants. We're going to capture the floor-to-floor heights. We're going to capture how much exterior facade there is per square foot of building. And in capturing that data, we can start to build reliable conceptual cost estimates, right? Because I think that's one of the most important things, is to get a reliable number as early as you can. And the only way to do that is to have benchmark data upon which you can start a conversation with the design team about, how much concrete should be in the foundations, what should we assume, how many pounds of steel in the superstructure. So we started to build a list of what these potential data items were. I think we now have about 400 or 450 pieces of data that we capture on every single project. And then we have it in a database system that we can sort and present very clearly.
And the 480, obviously you didn't start with 480 data points. How many did you start with? And those data points, did you go back through historical bids, or did you just go, right, we're starting from here and we're going to move forward? We
actually came up with, when we rolled it out, we had the 450 pieces of data in it, and we haven't changed that since we started.
Wow.
And we have gone back, we went back about 7 or 8 years and captured important projects that we thought would be important to be in the system. But the method of capturing the information, it was really important that we came up with some rules to say the data is captured in this way, because we have 150 people in our group, and they're all capturing, they all want to do it their own way. Yeah. And we came up with a set of rules and said, this is the rules to make the information reliable. It's got to all be captured in the same way. And we go through a lot of QA, QC to make sure that the data is correct and makes sense. Because once you have a couple of outliers that are obviously wrong, it skews all the data.
Yeah. Now, and Alan, you know as well as I know, that's a serious investment, even for a company the size of Skanska, because there's a lot of time and effort and a lot of senior people spending time doing this and organizing this. What was the key kind of sell for senior executives or leadership to be able to say, no, this is the way to go, we have to do this?
I think there was two moments of realization for the company. One was the fact that we had all this data and we weren't using it, and here's a format that we can capture it, and everybody was on board with that. And then when we started rolling out Skanska Metrics as a product, people just loved it, and our business development team, our clients, it really is a differentiator for us. And I think it was twofold. One of the big pieces, one of the big hurdles we had to get over was, how do you present the information? Because you have these folks who are very technical in terms of estimators, pre-construction folks, but then you've got to present it in a manner that clients can understand and easily trust it. So there was a lot of time invested in graphics and how to present this information in a very simple format.
Brilliant. And correct me if I'm wrong, is that Power BI you guys use to present it?
Yeah,
yeah,
it's Power BI, and it's interesting. When we go and present numbers to clients, normally our marketing team has helped us sell the project, and they do a very great job of a very polished product. And then pre-construction is the first ones through the door, right? And you've got to give this confidence that they have hired what they have seen in this very glossy marketing document. So we had to bring our work product up to that level. So we brought in our marketing team, our branding team, to really help us develop some products and some deliverables that were of that quality.
Brilliant. A proper collaborative approach. Yeah. And I mean, how powerful has it been? I mean, you're now 7-8 years into to having started it. How powerful is it now when you go and sit with a client? And I would imagine a lot of it's repeat business, but new clients, are they like blown away, or are they like, this is something we need?
Yeah, it's a lot of our clients are very interested in it, right? What starts as a kind of presentation becomes a discussion, because at some point during the presentation, we'll hit on something that they're interested in, and then we just dive right in. And it's a live file, so we can pull up different projects that we've done and get into them, and it becomes a conversation about their project as opposed to the software, and that's exactly where we're trying to go.
Yeah, and it comes back to that question that you and Eric sat down and discussed. It's about building something that clients want to use, and they want to come to us because they know they're only going to get it here. Absolutely.
It's one tool that we have that is very powerful and differentiates us, but it's how you use that information to build the initial cost model and be able to present it to the teams that they have trusted with you, and you can start driving a project forward.
Yeah. And Alan, back then, 7-8 years ago, pre-construction and estimating was, I mean, some people say it's still a necessary evil, but right now it's held in so much high regard in the whole process, and I mean, so important. I know not every company kind of relies on pre-construction, but anybody that's thinking further down the line, the biggest decisions are made within pre-construction, and pre-construction tech can help us build the buildings that we need bigger, better, and safer. Has it always been Skanska's idea that pre-construction was going to be invested in? That was the most important part, because I mean, they must have been one of the first to invest so much time and money in such a technology.
The company's leadership sees pre-construction as a differentiator. Done well, it can do several things. It can really drive a project forward. It can set a client up for success, but also it can set Skanska up for success, right? It means that we're preparing a plan as to how we're actually going to execute a project and be successful with a project. And if we can concentrate during pre-construction of developing a plan that makes the client successful, everything else has a tendency to fall in place. So the company has put a lot of resources into our technology capabilities, into capturing data, and there's a lot of things that we're working on in terms of the next level, from a point of view of capturing schedule information, from a point of view of capturing QA/QC issues with design documents, and we've recently really looked at how we're procuring work to make sure that we're consistent procuring work across the country as well. So really a consistent work product.
And that was my next question. You beat me to it. What's pre-construction technology? There's always new shiny tools running around the market. Startups telling us they can do this, that, and the other. What is there anything out there that's you're thinking this could be another game changer, and without giving away any state secrets or any company secrets?
There's a couple. I'm looking forward to being able to use the intelligence that we have in Skanska metrics, feeding it into a model of running different solutions for a project, being able to see that both visually and from a cost point of view. So I'm really interested in that. I think the second one is just being able to run some software over the top of design models and seeing where there's clashes, where there's pieces that are incomplete, because I think that having the ability to do that and give our construction team a more coordinated set of documents takes some pressure off them in the field, and I think trying to take some workload off them is extremely important as well.
Brilliant. Yeah, I love it, because there's a lot of talk about machine learning and BIM models and assemble. And I think there's very few that have got it right. I think it will take time to get it 100% right. But as you say, if you've got the data collected already, 7-8 years of it, your model's got more of a chance of success.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, so let's we did hear from Steve and Will on the East Coast. What's the plans for Skanska West Coast? You're over quite a big region. What guys are you going, what are you guys going after? What's the plans for growth? What's exciting you?
Well, so I have Seattle, Los Angeles, and San Francisco. Seattle is going gangbusters. Lots of the tech companies are here. They're growing dramatically. There's a lot of work. Seattle over the last 10 years has gone from a provincial town to an international city. It's a gateway to Alaska, it's a gateway to Asia. A lot of big companies are based here: Microsoft, Amazon, Starbucks, Costco, obviously significant port, bringing in material goods from Asia. And then we have a lot of companies coming in on the back of them, such as the Googles, Facebooks, Apples of the world, looking to pick up some of those folks. So the city has grown dramatically, a much more denser city. You see a lot more high rises going up. So everything looks rosy here for the moment. And we have a very significant presence here. Traditionally, we are one of the top 1 or 2 GCs in town on an annual basis. Backlog is really strong, got some really great people. So we're a well-oiled machine here. LA and San Francisco, we're more developing our offices and our teams down there. We have some really great people. We've focused over the last 4 or 5 years on really hiring local great experience and supplementing them with folks like myself who understand Skanska, have the history, have the connections within the company to help out the local folks, bringing in processes, protocols, and just how we do things at Skanska values.
Yeah.
Right? Who we are as a company, who we are as people. So we've brought those kind of 2 groups together, and we're starting to build some really great projects down there. We have our commercial development team in LA, and we have our civil team in LA. And there we have 3 sites for our commercial development group. We're continuing to look at more. And we have groups doing healthcare, aviation work, higher ed work, and commercial development, commercial office work. So the group is growing. We have a nice pre-con team there. We're looking to add a couple of members to that. And then I just took over San Francisco in December and start to learn who the folks are there and what we're doing. And San Francisco seems to have a really, I think it's 3 or 4 years ahead of our LA team. They're a pretty well-oiled machine as well, right? So some really good people. Again, just honest, hardworking folks, willing to really think about what's best for the client. We have some good new projects there, some tech clients there that are providing us with some nice work. So they're growing. We want to get the LA and San Francisco up to the, slowly but controlled up to where Seattle and their Portland teams are. So really great growth opportunity for us. Probably one of the best opportunities for growth throughout the company is in California.
Brilliant. I love it. And something I'm always interested in, obviously running my own firm here at Niche SSP, is management styles. We talked a bit off air before we came on about your own management styles, and I'm sure you're like me. You just learn from people who've managed you, what you like, what you dislike. I mean, you've obviously taken on now San Francisco. I mean, I'm sure that's added more to your plate. How do you manage so many people and keep everyone honest, keep everyone happy, and build then a successful team? I mean, me and you love a sports analogy. It's like building a football team. Like, you can't have 11 Tom Brady's or Ali McCoysts or Henrik Larssons. You need a bit of this and a bit of that to make the soup nice, or that there needs to be certain chemistry. How do you go about that?
Several ways. When I'm hiring folks, I very seldom get involved in the hiring unless it's at the top of the tree. I let my people hire their teammates. I make sure that if our pre-con directors are hiring our pre-con engineers or senior pre-con engineers, that our existing pre-con engineers get to meet those folks ahead of hiring them, so that they're bought into who they're going to be sitting alongside and their teammates. And we're very vested in our intern program, where we look to bring in our interns, either 1 or 2 years before they graduate, have them continue to be part of our team, invite them along to events, and then hire them and start to grow them up organically in the company. And that's been really successful in Seattle. Probably a third of our team has come through that approach. And then we're starting that process in LA and also in San Francisco, so growing people that way. And then I think it's my job to throw people in the deep end and give them the opportunity to be successful and learn their way. And I'm not a big fan of completely guiding people down the path. I want them to learn what the path is. And I kind of watch and monitor and push them and give them a little bit of advice. But, I wait till they're starting to drown a little bit before I put the hand down and help them, and then help them out, and then throw them back in. So really giving people the opportunity to grow. And I think if I can make my people successful, then I'll do pretty well myself. So I'm concentrating on my folks. I sit down with each of my direct reports for 30 to 45 minutes every week just to catch up and see how they're doing. And sometimes we talk about projects, sometimes we talk about their family, but I just get to know them better and they get to know me better, and it creates a more open relationship. It's really helped with our, when you look at our survey results of people believing that they're getting good feedback on where their career's going, of what their next steps are, on how they're being perceived throughout the company. So I think it's been a great approach that we're looking to expand on.
Brilliant. Exciting times. So Alan Dunbar, you're working flat out for Skanska on the West Coast. What do you do to relax? Because it sounds as if you've got your plate full.
Yeah, definitely. Try and travel as much as I can. We were just in Maui for a week, end of January. It was just fantastic, being able
Nice.
to walk along the beach in January is not something you get to do too often when you're from Scotland. And it was beautiful. It was left email at home, played some golf, ate some great food, and just spent time with the family.
Brilliant. Can't beat it. Have you got a big family, Alan?
No, I don't actually. It's only myself, my wife, and my mother-in-law over here. Being, all my family's back in the homeland. My mother-in-law's Korean. She came over from Korea in the 70s, so her family's back there. And then my wife is one of 2 daughters. The other one's in London. But so we have a very small, compact family. So.
Lovely. Yeah, very nice. There's nothing better than walking on a beach in January, I can tell you. I feel your pain as an Irishman. We're not used to it. My white skin doesn't last very long out there.
Yeah, I have shades of pink, is what I think I have.
Yeah, it's just it's part of the course. Well, listen, Alan, thank you very much. This has been incredible. I'm really looking forward to getting this out to the audience. Just if there is anyone out there, what's the best way that's looking to contact you? What's the best way to get you?
Probably through LinkedIn.
Yeah.
I think you can just send an email to me through that. Also, start to, if we can post my email address on with the podcast, that'd be fantastic as well.
Wonderful. We will do, Alan. Well, listen, for everyone here at the Preconstruction Podcast, thank you very much.
Thank you. Great to be with you.